Hello again. I am super excited to have you here. As I said last week, we're going to be talking about self-image, and we're going to be talking about that by talking about the book Psycho-cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. He was a plastic surgeon who became a psychologist. And he became a psychologist because he was perplexed by the lack of change in confidence levels of people after he had performed successful surgeries. He saw that some people would come in with some kind of deformity and he would correct it through plastic surgery, but he would see no difference in their level of confidence. They would remain the same and continue to see themselves as they had seen them prior to surgery. So even when he would show them a before and an after picture, they would still look at the picture, and whereas at some point they would acknowledge that yes, the deformity was gone, but they didn't look any different. And it was through that Dr. Maltz realized that there was something other than physical features that was at below the surface of someone who saw themselves and had a poor self-image. It was more than just physical features. So he started a study of psychology and studying the self-image to see where that comes from. So we're going to be talking about for the next several weeks, and I'm going to try to keep my videos short, so we're only going to cover like small topics. But so for the next several weeks, we're going to be talking about and covering this book. But before I do that, I think that I need to get something out of the way. Because there's Christians, some Christians, that will see any improvement to the self-image as something that's prideful. And if it's prideful, then of course it is sinful. So because when we start to improve our self-image or improve the way that we see ourselves, then it could appear to be too self-focused. And as Christians, we're not necessarily supposed to be focused on the self. We're supposed to be outward focused. But I believe, like Dr. Maltz says, is that the self-image, the way that you see yourself, is the key to human behavior. However you see yourself is how you are going to behave. If you see yourself as a failure, then you will behave as a failure. As I said last week, you cannot outperform your self-image. Your self-image imposes your limits. It gives you the constraints. It says how far you can go. It tells you what you can and cannot do. It caps your ability to have success in anything. Your self-image stops you. So I had created this visual of some steps, and I tried to show it to you last week, but because of the mirrored image, you couldn't really see it. I drew it again, but again, it's going to be the mirrored image, but for a second, maybe I could just talk to you about it. So we also talked last week about cause and effect, how that you cannot have an effect without a cause. So your cause is kind of like down here on this bottom step. The cause, your self-image, causes you to have thoughts. You have thoughts about what you can and cannot do. This causes you to have certain feelings. And from your feelings cause you to have certain behaviors, and your behaviors cause your effect. So if you're up here on this top level and you're trying to achieve a new level of success, if like you want to go to the next level, this self-image is like a chain that's going to keep you from moving up. You can't go any further because your self-image is holding you back and not allowing you to succeed any further. So we cannot outperform our self-image. Our self-image is the limits and the constraints. But going back to that, so I want to tell you just real quick before we move on to any improvement or any probably we're not going to be talking about the improvement quite yet, as we're just going to talk about where it comes from and the different things that causes it. But before we do, I want to tell you what the Bible says about self-image and how we should see ourselves. And it doesn't use the word self-image, but in Genesis 1:27, it tells us that God created human beings in his image. In his image, he created them. So right away, if we were created in God's image, then we should know right from that we were created to be successful and to not be failures. In Psalms chapter 14, verse 14 says, or chapter 139, verse 14, it says, "Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous." If I'm saying to God, thank you for making me so wonderfully complex, your workmanship is marvelous, then I'm saying that I am a marvelous created being. But my favorite of the verses that I pulled out is Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, which says, "For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so that we can do the good things he planned for us long ago." That means that God created you to do good things. He planned for it to happen. You are his masterpiece, and you were created to succeed. So if we're going to look at our self-image, then we need to know. We need to know that we were created to succeed. We are God's masterpiece. So I just kind of wanted to take care of that and let you know that your self-image is simply just like your image in a mirror. Like when you look at yourself, you see your image. Your self-image is basically just how you see yourself. Your value, your worth. If you have a poor self-image, then you have a poor self-worth. If you have a great self-image, then you know that you're worthy. And God says that you're worthy. God calls you worthy enough to send his son to die for you. That alone should tell you that you're worthy. And that you're worthwhile and that you're important. You matter. God says you matter. It's okay for you to know and see yourself as mattering. Because your self-image is going to hold you back and it's going to hold you in a box. But here's the thing about self-image. Our mind, and this is another little partial image that I drew, and I don't know, it's probably not going to make a lot of sense. But this right here is called the stick man. This is actually a very common image in like psychology and a lot of the psychology classes. And this right here, this big circle on top, is representative of the mind. And the top part of the mind is your conscious mind, the mind where you think, like where your thoughts reside. And this bottom part of the circle is our self-conscious mind. This is kind of represents the self-conscious mind. And that is where our self-image resides. So your self-image causes you to have certain thoughts, and those thoughts feed your feelings. Those feelings feed your actions, and those actions feed your results. Now, here's the thing about your self-image. That is how you view yourself. The conscious mind, like this ability to think, the subconscious mind down here has no ability to reason. It just accepts whatever is input. Whatever is put in there, it accepts it. Maxwell Maltz called the book Psycho-cybernetics because cybernetics just basically means, I'll give you the official definition, it's the science of communications and automatic control systems in machines and living things. So your subconscious mind is a control system. It basically just controls the things that happen, the output. It doesn't think objectively. It doesn't throw out thoughts because it might not be a good one or it might not be true. Your subconscious mind just accepts what's fed to it. So that being said, up here, your conscious mind, that's where your thoughts, like that's where you think, and your thoughts feed into your subconscious mind. So, and then this line, let's call that your ability to reason. Here's the thing. Most of us have a self-image that was created by other people. Other people created our self-image. And that is because your conscious mind, if I can just delete this, your conscious mind doesn't develop until you're anywhere between 6 and 12. So that means that other people, are inputting things, opinions, into your subconscious mind, and you have no ability to reject them. Everything that goes in, you just accept because the conscious mind hasn't been developed yet. So most likely, it obviously there are things that happen after the fact that feed into that, but most likely how you see yourself is based on how you accepted and the internalization of thoughts and people's opinions and people's words that were fed to you before you had any capability of rejecting them, of reasoning them out or thinking about them. So they're just there, and it's causing all of these different feelings and reactions, and it's also capping your ability to move forward. So if you want to change, and we talked about last week how your current result or the current effect that you're living in is not how it always has to be, because it is not a prediction of your future. It is the results of your past. If you want to change your future, then you just have to change. You have to change what you're doing to develop a new future. But in order to do that, you have to address your self-image, because your self-image is going to keep you at a certain level. So it's kind of like we have to step backwards so we have to look at our effects, and we have to figure out what are the behaviors that's causing our effects. And then we have to be able to move back and identify the feelings that is being created by the thoughts. And then we have to look at how do we really see ourselves. We have to address the self-image. Dr. Maxwell Maltz said that if you can increase a person's self-image, they will suddenly appear to have talent, like new talent, like suddenly developed all of these talents and capabilities, and they'll be able to turn failures into success with the only thing that changed is their self-image and the way that they view themselves. So he also talked about, and I talked about before how I did not subscribe to positive affirmations and positive thinking, and to me it was like it has to be truth, and it felt like they were lying to me, like the sayings were lies because I didn't really believe them. So Maxwell Maltz he talks about how that positive affirmations and positive thinking does in fact work, but only if it is consistent and in line with your self-image. So if you're saying all of these positive things, but your self-image is telling you otherwise, then positive thinking doesn't work. But if it is in alignment with your self-image, it does in fact work. So the key and the point to all of this is to work on and improve our self-image, to start from there. And we're going to be talking a lot about that But then one final thing that I want to address today, and the thing that I want to talk about today is two little diagrams, and I've actually taken longer than I'd wanted to. But so here is like your action, and we'll call this success. A lot of people kind of think that success is supposed to be like this straight line, like this line that goes straight up, but that's not what it looks like. To arrive from where you are to success is more like an up-down thing. You have a few failures, you have a few successes, you have failures, successes, and that's more the line from where you are to success in anything. People tend to think that failing at something or having a failure makes us a failure. That's not true. We are not our results. And that's even when you succeed, or whether it be success or failure, you are not your results. You are separate from your results. One of the examples that was used by Paul Martinelli, one of my mentors, when he was talking about that, was that he was talking about like how his sales team, like they make all of these calls to try to sell the courses and the different things like that. And he says, when they report back to him at the end of the week or the beginning of the week to tell their success, they don't say we made 1,000 calls and 700 of them we failed at. He says, you're not graded on your failures, you're graded on your success. So when you come to the sales meeting, you're saying we had 300 new sales. You're not graded by your failure. You're graded by your success. But the road to success is a bumpy ride. And another thing that he said is that the more failures you have, the more successes you will have. Because failure is a part of the success roadmap, which means we're not always going to get it right. Failure is inevitable. Like it is. So, and unfortunately, that's what holds a lot of us back, is the fear of failure. Failure is inevitable, but it doesn't have to be final. There was another quote that says, our ability to succeed, success is the ability to go from one failure to another without losing momentum, to just keep moving forward, failure after failure, until we land to success. So we have to understand that failure is not final, and you are not your results. Just because you failed at something does not make you a failure, but we like internalize that. And one failure is like, oh, that means that we are a failure, and we give up and we stop trying. But you have to fail to succeed. You have to keep moving forward and stop letting that become your identity. And then the final thing that I want to show you, and I go again, I'm taking so much longer than I wanted to, but the final thing that I want to show you is, so let's say this little dot in the middle, this little circle, and I know it's a mirrored image, but it says do. So that little circle right there represents what we do. Those are the things that we do currently. And then outside of that is another level. And those are the things that we can do, but don't. And then the next circle is the things that we could learn to do. Like, we don't know how to do them now, but if we put any effort into it, we could learn to do it. And then the next circle is what the area that we could strive, like we could really work to do, and we could really put a lot of work at it, and eventually we could do it. And then we say that this outer box is the limits of what we could accomplish. But the truth is that if we ever got to that point, like where we were working on the things that we could strive to do, we would probably see that the limits aren't actually there. if we would move from just this inner circle of what we do and start doing the things that we can do, that alone would cause a huge change in your level of success and your level of living. But then if you move to what you could learn to do, huge steps towards moving forward and changing your current effects. One of the things that was talked about, it was like talking about how we as people, we look at that little bitty circle, right? And then we look at this outer thing, and we're thinking, if this is our limit, if this outer line, if that's our limit, and we're in here, and this is all that we're doing, and we're not thinking about this next line. We're not thinking about what we can do and couldn't, and we don't, and we're not thinking about the things that we could learn to do. We're thinking about what's out here, out in the outer limits. So it's kind of like, if I feel like I can't ever be a quarterback for the Detroit Lions, right, like out here, then I'm not going to exercise at all. Because we don't focus on the little things and the things that we could do to make a difference. We're focused on what we can't do, right? I can't become a quarterback for the Detroit Lions. It's just not going to happen. It can't happen. So I look at what I can't do, and because I'm looking out there, I'm not doing what I can do. I'm just doing this little bit of what I could do because I'm focused on the outer picture. Oh, well, I can't do that. So why even try? Why even bother doing anything? So right from the get-go, there may be a lot of things that you can't do, but there are a lot of things that you could do. And we have to start with what you can. Start with what you can do that you're not. Look for small things to start working on. And we're going to continue talking about self-image, and we're going to just cover this book. This book is great, and there's a lot of lessons in there, and we're just going to cover this book, and we're going to talk about it, and we'll go through it for however long it takes us to get to the heart of the self-image. But so last week was your current effects that you're living in are not permanent. It's not a prediction to your future. It's results of your past. Today's major little lesson or little note through all of that is that failure at something does not make you a failure. It doesn't become your identity. You are not your results. And the challenge today is to start making small changes and do what you can do and start working out and kind of expanding your circle. Stop focusing on the things that's outside your wall of limit. Don't focus on what's out there. Focus is what's on the inside and closest to you that you can do, the things that you can do to make a change. That's it. I hope this helps you. Sorry it was longer than I planned, and I will see you next week with something else. I love you guys. Bye.